İnternette hemen hemen her gün yalan yanlış bilgilerle de karşılaşıyoruz. Bu bir gerçek, aynı zamanda tehdit. Hatta salgın boyutuna gelebiliyor. İşbirliği yaparak, farkına vararak bu tehditle baş edebilir, bu salgını yavaşlatabiliriz. Merhaba Türkiye'm, ben İsmail Küçükkaya, Fox TV'den. Yalan yanlış haberlerle mücadele edebilmek ve kendimizi koruyabilmek adına, bu salgın boyutuna gelen tehditle mücadele edebilmek adına İstanbul Bilgi Üniversitesi İletişim Fakültesi ile beraber bir çalışma yürütüyoruz. Küresel Dijital Medya Okuryazarlığı Projesi MediaWise desteğiyle işte bu çabamızı Brezilya'dan İspanya'ya kadar dünyanın pek çok farklı ülkesiyle işbirliği yaparak hayata geçirme çabası içindeyiz. Bu, sosyal fayda sağlamaya dönük bir gönüllü işbirliği projesi. Bilgi Üniversitesi İletişim Fakültesi'nin hazırladığı dersler ve benim nacizane gazetecilik tecrübelerimle internette dolaşıma sokulan yalan yanlış bilgileri yakalamak ve onlarla mücadele edebilmek adına beraber çalışacağız. Derslerimizde biz gazetecilerin karşılaştığımız bilgileri doğrulamak, teyit etmek için her gün kullandığımız birkaç küçük taktiği sizlerle paylaşacağız. Size faydalı ve güzel bir haberim var. Bu ipuçlarını hepimiz öğrenebiliriz ve kolayca kullanabiliriz. Bir tek şey yapmamız gerekiyor. Yapacağımız tek şey WhatsApp'ta sunduğumuz "Acaba doğru mu?" Evet. "Acaba doğru mu?" derslerine katılmak. Eğer güç birliği yaparsak ve farkına varırsak tehlikenin, onu önleyebiliriz, beraber üstesinden gelebiliriz. İnternette hemen hemen her gün yalan yanlış bilgilerle de karşılaşıyoruz. Bu bir gerçek, aynı zamanda tehdit. Hatta salgın boyutuna gelebiliyor. İşbirliği yaparak, farkına vararak bu tehditle baş edebilir, bu salgını yavaşlatabiliriz. Merhaba Türkiye'm, ben İsmail Küçükkaya, Fox TV'den. Yalan yanlış haberlerle mücadele edebilmek ve kendimizi koruyabilmek adına, bu salgın boyutuna gelen tehditle mücadele edebilmek adına İstanbul Bilgi Üniversitesi İletişim Fakültesi ile beraber bir çalışma yürütüyoruz. Bu, sosyal fayda sağlamaya dönük bir gönüllü işbirliği projesi. Bilgi Üniversitesi İletişim Fakültesi'nin hazırladığı dersler ve benim nacizane gazetecilik tecrübelerimle internette dolaşıma sokulan yalan yanlış bilgileri yakalamak ve onlarla mücadele edebilmek adına beraber çalışacağız. İnternette hemen hemen her gün yalan yanlış bilgilerle de karşılaşıyoruz. Bu bir gerçek, aynı zamanda tehdit. Hatta salgın boyutuna gelebiliyor. İşbirliği yaparak, farkına vararak bu tehditle baş edebilir, bu salgını yavaşlatabiliriz. Merhaba Türkiye'm, ben İsmail Küçükkaya, Fox TV'den. Yalan yanlış haberlerle mücadele edebilmek ve kendimizi koruyabilmek adına, bu salgın boyutuna gelen tehditle mücadele edebilmek adına İstanbul Bilgi Üniversitesi İletişim Fakültesi ile beraber bir çalışma yürütüyoruz. Küresel Dijital Medya Okuryazarlığı Projesi MediaWise desteğiyle işte bu çabamızı Brezilya'dan İspanya'ya kadar dünyanın pek çok farklı ülkesiyle işbirliği yaparak hayata geçirme çabası içindeyiz. Bu, sosyal fayda sağlamaya dönük bir gönüllü işbirliği projesi. Bilgi Üniversitesi İletişim Fakültesi'nin hazırladığı dersler ve benim nacizane gazetecilik tecrübelerimle internette dolaşıma sokulan yalan yanlış bilgileri yakalamak ve onlarla mücadele edebilmek adına beraber çalışacağız. Derslerimizde biz gazetecilerin karşılaştığımız bilgileri doğrulamak, teyit etmek için her gün kullandığımız birkaç küçük taktiği sizlerle paylaşacağız. Size faydalı ve güzel bir haberim var. Bu ipuçlarını hepimiz öğrenebiliriz ve kolayca kullanabiliriz. Bir tek şey yapmamız gerekiyor. Yapacağımız tek şey WhatsApp'ta sunduğumuz "Acaba doğru mu?" Evet. "Acaba doğru mu?" derslerine katılmak. Eğer güç birliği yaparsak ve farkına varırsak tehlikenin, onu önleyebiliriz, beraber üstesinden gelebiliriz. İnternette hemen hemen her gün yalan yanlış bilgilerle de karşılaşıyoruz. Bu bir gerçek, aynı zamanda tehdit. Hatta salgın boyutuna gelebiliyor. İşbirliği yaparak, farkına vararak bu tehditle baş edebilir, bu salgını yavaşlatabiliriz.
To accurate information, some wrong information, inaccurate information is being generated as well. And undoubtedly, science is analyzing this information in order to struggle with disinformation and misinformation. And as a digital literacy training program, we believe that Spain, Brazil, and Turkey. So this project includes these countries, and we expect this project to extend to many other countries in the medium run. So, and we have a couple of acknowledgements. So when I say the project team, our dean and our project implementer Halil Nalçaoğlu, and Erkan Saga and Esra, and as the MediaWise project team, we have a long list of people. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Mr. Ismail Küçükkaya. He has believed in our project, and then he accepted to become the volunteer ambassador of MediaWise Turkey. So we'd like to sincerely thank him. Ismail has not only supported our project during the shootings, he acted with an admirable professionalism, raising the bar of our project even higher. And we have Mahadevan and also MediaWise International Training Director Birtel Colon. They've been working with us for months, and in addition to all the projects they've been working on, maybe they put us to the first place, and so they've never spared their positive energy and their support. And they traveled 20 hours for the launch of this project. We're so pleased that you're here. Thank you for not leaving us alone. And with Uzyelan, and so we have Erdan and Ali. So they are behind the cameras, as you can see. Özgür and Soy, who are our alumni. And they created all the project videos, and they made amazing programs with Ismail Bey. We'd like to thank them very much for their support and patience, and for the incredible gap they have breached in making sure that Turkey access right information. So we have some confirmation themes, and we'd like to thank them. So we have the meta theme as well. So they have not only founded the project, but we've been lucky enough to work with them as well. I'd like to thank Aslan Usta and Ece Başa, and also Sezen very much. And we'd like to thank BİLGİ University's event coordinator Onur Çebi, and also we'd like to thank all the administrative and technical staff of BİLGİ University. Sevda is not among us today, but we'd like to thank her very much for a new arrangement as well. And we have the Come On event agency, and also we have a PR agency as well, so they're supporting us. And we have our interpreters, and we'd like to thank our interpreters in advance. And without further ado, so our first panel is about digital media literacy and also misinformation. Our mediator is Sezen Yeşil, and our project director and dean and Halil Nalçaoğlu, and also social and humanitarian sciences faculty dean, and also İsmail Küçükkaya. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. Welcome everyone. Welcome to our panel about digital media literacy and misinformation, and we have very valuable speakers in our panel with us today. To introduce them briefly, Professor Halil Nalçaoğlu. He is the Dean of the Faculty of Communication of BİLGİ University, and at the same time, he has been the Dean since 2011. Professor Uyan Semerci. She is at BİLGİ University. She's a member of faculty at the Department of International Relations, and at the same time, since 2007, she is the manager of the migration studies. And also İsmail Küçükkaya is a TV programmer. I think everybody knows him thanks to his Çalar Saat program. So we're so pleased to be with you. Thank you so much in advance for your contributions. Distinguished guests. So we have habits, and so we have carried many of us our habits to the online environment as well, and digital literacy is becoming even more important. And as Meta, with our former name Facebook, we are implementing work with many institutions, and last year we had some project with Oxford and also an Humanitarian Development Foundation, so digital citizenship research. And this research has started us with very striking information. In Turkey, only 1 out of 4 people has awareness about misinformation and disinformation, according to the results of this research. And So we have come in today in order to generate solutions to this problem. For awareness, first we need to have information about concepts. First and foremost, I'd like to ask my first question to Pinar. And so what is the difference between misinformation and disinformation? And I know that you have a very recent study, and could you please share some of the vital points of your study as well? Thank you very much. And so on the 18th of March, so we had information irregularity. So we shared our book, our open information book about information irregularities. And as the migration center, we've been working on this for a long time. And one of the main points about opposing or hostility against foreigners is disinformation and misinformation, and also malinformation. There are three different types of it. And so there is a state of fear, there is anxiety. It is combined with conspiracy theories as well, and they prevent people from making the right decision. We had a TÜBİTAK project in order to understand individual behaviors, and one of the most important findings is that people do not necessarily share misinformation with ill intention. And so there are some WhatsApp groups, as you know that. It is valuable that we can provide training over WhatsApp. So there are some closed WhatsApp groups, even our beloved people and our members of our family can share misinformation very easily. And also there are some algorithms which are outside, which are out of our control. They're all based on speed. We are both consumers and also producers of this. So from a social sciences perspective, and it is very exciting for us to be able to speak up, and especially for the disadvantaged groups that I'm working with, it is a medium for them to express themselves, because no editorial process is working. It is very risky as well. And so in an environment when there is information overload, we are trying to access the right, accurate information. I'd like to thank the RGB team, and then they made all the shootings of our program as well. And Erkan Bey was also part of it as well. And then we had a training, and with this infodemy book, we tried to explain the concepts and also their reasons and also ways of interfering with them. And with this project as BİLGİ University, I think we are making a great contribution to the field. I know we have very limited time, but perhaps maybe last of all I can say, so otherization, and also in the polarization study that we have conducted, we realized that in the studies in Turkey, the distance from each other and social distance and also otherization and also humiliation, and in all of these, so when we have in-depth interviews and focus meeting, we realize that people interpret Turkey in different ways, and so these are based on different Turkey realities. Everybody feels aggrieved, and everybody is angry, and also these different realities are lived within our own small worlds, and with reflections in this bowl, and in the post-reality period, we have great difficulty in finding out what is accurate and what is inaccurate information, and so we should all learn ways of getting access to accurate information, and I believe that so all these tools that we generate cooperatively are important in order to strengthen all of us. For example, how do there are very simple ways of understanding whether a visual about a news article that we are reading really belongs to that news article, and then sometimes think for a while. A very short expression can save lives. That's why. So And so we have curricula and we have some institutional structures as well. And maybe I think we need to revise all the structure with awareness about this topic. But this, the more we strengthen ourselves as individuals, the more contribution we'll be making as world citizens. Thank you very much. You're right on time. Thank you very much.
So my second question goes to Ismail Bey. Ismail Bey comes from the media sector where the communication we have been talking about is most busy. So what do you think? What kind of gaps do we have, and are there any improvement areas? And what can be done to reduce misunderstanding and misconceptions on these platforms? Thank you. Well, thank you very much, and let me greet you first. This is a very important project indeed. And I'm a volunteer in this project due to a number of reasons. Well, first of all, I like Instagram. I exist on almost all social media platforms, but Instagram is the most important one for me, and I have a very special relationship with my followers there on Instagram. So this is number one. And secondly, on a very popular TV show, it's a reality that we are in need of news which are correct, and we are confronted with numerous traps and potential for misunderstanding. Of course, what our program is open for communication and for interaction on this Çalar Saat, the alarm clock platform. And when we say it, we are open for interaction, we receive a great amount of communication. And if I'm able to transmit my message to my viewers, then that means we are open for these potential misunderstandings. And personally, I also wanted to support this great project owned by important organizations, and BİLGİ University is one of the most affluent universities in the world. As Aslı Hanım talked to me about this project, I have seen their projects which took place in Spain, in Portugal, and in many other countries. So I told myself I should contribute to this project in collaboration with Facebook, with Meta. And that was the time when I understood that things are rather alarmingly critical. So for many years, there were two politicians who have been confronting one another on TV shows, and I was asked to act as a moderator in this program, and I accepted this offer. My seniors before me have not accepted it, and their reason was that there were potential misunderstandings inherent in these kinds of programs. And what I did was, believe it or not, I mean, imagine your closest people around you, your family. So between Mr. İmamoğlu and Binali Yıldırım, I was going to moderate the program. So I accepted this, and in my WhatsApp groups, even my closest friends and relatives have started to share some information about me which were not correct, which were not true. And in that WhatsApp group, well, I came across numerous messages which were shared about me, and I was very surprised indeed. So when the TV show was ended, well, the producers were not able to get the results which were aimed at in the beginning. So it's always the right, it's always the truth which wins at the end. And if you are doing something valuable and if you stick to the truth, that means you will win all the time. On the other hand, this is a very great risk. So when this project was presented to me, I've decided to support it with a great volunteerism. So there is this kind of suspicion, and there is this amount of information in front of us. Is that true? And in one of our videos, we have chosen the tag which goes like "Acaba doğru mu?" Is it right in English? So is it the truth indeed? So what we need to do is, in this age of information, we are talking about an astounding amount of information and data being shared, and we have to be careful about it, and we have to confirm all kinds of information that we receive. So personally, I will be trying to contribute to this. We will be carrying this onto the TV as well, so that larger amounts and groups of people will be able to benefit from it. Thank you. Thank you very much. My third question goes to Professor Halil. Well, when it comes to digital literacy and digital roles and responsibility, what's your reading of it for the present time? Well, I knew the question already, so I'm prepared. Well, first of all, I would like to thank everyone for coming. We have already received a list of thanks. But let me also thank once again to the project owners, along with Ismail Bey and all the other teams behind it. This has been a very exciting process for all of us indeed. Of course, everything we have been talking about and what Karaca has talked about, these are within the field of our interest. We have been discussing the information society and data. We have been talking around these issues for many years. As the media department, we had hosted Frank Webster years ago, who is a British sociologist, and he was the first person who came up with this concept of information society, and Frank Webster has realized some detailed analysis around this concept. And when it comes to, we have been talking around these concepts like potential misunderstandings in this new information society and so on, but the discussions were not as critical as they are now, and technology has opened up new vistas for all of us. Now, I observe a kind of rupture point, which was in 2016, because it was in 2016 when something very important has happened, and globally speaking, people have felt that there needs to be an action that should be taken. So in 2016, we had this US elections and some issues around manipulation, manipulative data and information, and misunderstandings. Because from a sociological perspective and cultural perspective, we are not talking about being influenced by these potential misunderstandings only, but also from a strategic and political perspective, people have come to the understanding that these would be posing serious threats to societies around the world. And as far as these global concepts are concerned, everything has been linked to one another, and that process was in a way rolled out. So what kind of a reading could we make? As you know, since social media as a concept came out, there were numerous interpretations of it. It was as if like ancient Greece and the conception of democracy in ancient Greece. People have looked at these new social media platforms as a new potential for reclaiming and rebuilding that kind of Greek democracy, which was an ideal, and it was seen as a triggerer of a democratic process. But at the same time, simultaneously with this perception, people who have been working in these fields have also seen that what was actually harming democracy, and it was also kind of environment where people who were against democracy could also gain power and strength. Because imagine a kind of field where you grow plants which you like and which you want to grow, but then there are other plants which are unwanted. And the cancelled culture concept, which is being discussed in the Western world nowadays, and when it states and state-related institutions and their propagandas, both against their citizens and for their citizens, all these algorithms and profiling actions, we have come to the understanding and awareness of these potential threats and dynamics almost immediately. Misinformation and so malinformation, which means for a purpose, for a bad purpose, and it created a kind of social media conception which had threats in it. So in this unbelievably complex structure, if you ask me, first of all, the civil society and universities should assume great responsibilities because, well, let me put it this way, civil NGOs and non-governmental organizations, I know that I'm going into a sweeping generalization, but if we are talking about two organizations who feel that they owe for the truth, there might be some concerns and other interests, but MediaWise, let me highlight that. So MediaWise only purpose is the truth. So universities from that perspective have an important and critical position. And my second opinion around this issue is that we have found a solution, and Ismail Bey has supported us. But then there is no such world. We have already left it behind. Democracy is always an area of struggle, and we cannot say that, well, we are now fully democratic. There is always room for further improvement. And the area, the platform ahead of us is limitless. So if you remember from your high school maths, you never come to that destination which you dream about. So today we are focusing on this project of digital literacy, and this project focuses on adults mainly. So let me very quickly try to define how the process will be rolled out. With MediaWise's support, what we will be doing is to localize the texts. Actually, we have localized them, and it's just like adapting these texts to Ismail Bey's language. And we have been working with him throughout the process, and we have talked to him. And thankfully, he accepted our offer, and he became our spokesperson in a way. So I don't know how many people listened to me, but when Ismail Bey talks, many people listen to him. And since we are talking about social issues and we're talking to the society, we have felt very happy because he's a very professional and objective media figure for us. So what will happen is that you will get enrolled to our courses. We want every one of you to do this, so you cannot escape. And we want our social media sharings to be rolled out to as many people as possible. And once the registration will be made, there will be one lesson that will be sent to them in every 10 days from WhatsApp groups. So we are dealing with misinformation and misconception, and that makes us very exciting indeed. So we already do this in our classes and in different education groups. But it's important for everyone to be able to receive these from their own WhatsApp groups. So we hope that before retweeting or reposting, well, this has excited me too much. Is this fire really in Turkey? So we hope to make people ask these kinds of questions. And for me, our project is important for another reason. I don't know how many years it has been, but I have been talking about bringing down the university walls instead of squeezing university environments within campuses. I really dream about turning these university institutions into creative and collaborative spaces. And lastly, as I have already mentioned, universities have a great contribution to democratic societies and to democracy. So from that perspective as well, the project, in my eyes, is very important. And let me say one last thing and then end my speech. Well, universities are really Pinar Hanım's research, for example. I mean, collecting data by visiting people in person and talking to them. And this open entrepreneurship, I mean, this is a very arduous work. You print the book and you give it to the readers, and well, the book is read. But then when we are talking about an open source publication, it takes you from one link to another. So I encourage you to download it. And will we have the printed version? Yes. So hopefully we will get it signed. Well, thank you. Well, let me repeat myself. As citizens owing for truth, and running after truth, we feel great happiness for being part of this as on behalf of Meta as well. And thank you for listening to me. Well, thank you. Well, our professor has talked about the program. Within the program, we have prepared education materials, and Ismail Bey has presented it with our members. My last question is to Ismail Bey. As you were preparing these videos, have you learned something new? And if people will have to take one lesson out of these programs, what would that be?
That's a good question. So we had we had education and also entertaining process, and then I came to this very prestigious university, and also we have MediaWise, and this cooperation was something that pleased me, and I feel really proud to have contributed. Yes, I always say we have mobile phone in our hands, so I say the same when I go to universities to deliver speeches. So when I look at this, I see that we have Twitter, Instagram, and also many others. So they are it is so attractive, and it's very provocative as well. And sometimes we receive very provocative posts as well. And so let's stop for a minute, I say. And so think about my broadcast. So in a 3-hour broadcast, I have my mobile phone in my hand all the time, and some people are setting traps as well. And for they use an Atatürk profile, and so they tweet three or four times during my broadcast, during my airing, and they know that I'm gonna read. And even today, something similar happened. I say there is a message, but we should confirm it. And it's irreversible. I learned, so what I have learned from this program, and I want everybody to learn this, and I think my presence here is important to tell you that we should stop for a while. So we're not in a position where we have to share a post immediately. So there are certain media that you can use. For example, we have Teyit.com, which means confirmation.com.
Çok farklı kesimler.
For example, following up the media over various perspectives is a very good way. Sarpanlar, for example, made a post, for example, recently, and in the United States there are some programs, and then so they find out who I'm following on and social media. So I knew that yes, that person was your student. So they examine my social media accounts, and then I'm following both the opposition and also the pro-government circles equally. This is very important, but however, there are some colleagues of ours who are opposition or opponents to the government, and they only follow the opposition. Or there are some, for example, pro-government colleagues, they only follow pro-government people as well. And so this is a single-winged plane, and I think it won't work. So we have reached the end of our panel. I don't think we have any time for any questions. Maybe you can address your questions during the coffee break, and I'd like to thank all our panelists very much for their contributions, and we'd like to thank you for listening to us as well. Thank you. So before I invite our panelists for the second panel, and both Sezen and Halil talked about trainings. So let me tell you how we're going to participate in these trainings, other than our guests in the front line.
İnternette hemen hemen her gün yalan yanlış bilgilerle de karşılaşıyoruz. Bu bir gerçek, aynı zamanda tehdit. Hatta salgın boyutuna gelebiliyor. İşbirliği yaparak, farkına vararak bu tehditle baş edebilir, bu salgını yavaşlatabiliriz. Merhaba Türkiye'm, ben İsmail Küçükkaya, Fox TV'den. Yalan yanlış haberlerle mücadele edebilmek ve kendimizi koruyabilmek adına, bu salgın boyutuna gelen tehditle mücadele edebilmek adına İstanbul Bilgi Üniversitesi İletişim Fakültesi ile beraber bir çalışma yürütüyoruz. Küresel Dijital Medya Okuryazarlığı Projesi MediaWise desteğiyle işte bu çabamızı Brezilya'dan İspanya'ya kadar dünyanın pek çok farklı ülkesiyle işbirliği yaparak hayata geçirme çabası içindeyiz. Bu, sosyal fayda sağlamaya dönük bir gönüllü işbirliği projesi. Bilgi Üniversitesi İletişim Fakültesi'nin hazırladığı dersler ve benim nacizane gazetecilik tecrübelerimle internette dolaşıma sokulan yalan yanlış bilgileri yakalamak ve onlarla mücadele edebilmek adına beraber çalışacağız. Derslerimizde biz gazetecilerin karşılaştığımız bilgileri doğrulamak, teyit etmek için her gün kullandığımız birkaç küçük taktiği sizlerle paylaşacağız. Size faydalı ve güzel bir haberim var. Bu ipuçlarını hepimiz öğrenebiliriz ve kolayca kullanabiliriz. Bir tek şey yapmamız gerekiyor. Yapacağımız tek şey WhatsApp'ta sunduğumuz "Acaba doğru mu?" Evet. "Acaba doğru mu?" derslerine katılmak. Eğer güç birliği yaparsak ve farkına varırsak tehlikenin, onu önleyebiliriz, beraber üstesinden gelebiliriz.
Merhabalar.
Hello. I'm also so pleased to be here, and at the same time, and I'm so pleased to be with the real actors of this project, and also I've been following them for many years, and sometimes we cooperate, so we'll be sharing our experience. As you know that, and maybe the public in Turkey doesn't know very well what MediaWise is doing. Maybe Alex will tell us a bit about it. But if you have missed what Dogruluk, Payı, and Teyit are doing, they'll be telling about themselves as well. They are the real stars, so I'll be passing the ball to them. Alex,
About MediaWise. What do you do there?
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. This is very, very exciting. This is a lot of firsts for me. This is my first time in Turkey. It is my first time actually meeting my newest colleague, Brittany. We've only known each other over Zoom, like many people during the pandemic. And this is the first launch of our international MediaWise project. So I am very, very excited. So a little bit about MediaWise. We are a digital media literacy project based out of the Poynter Institute in the United States. We started in 2018, but really the idea behind MediaWise started back in 2016, like was mentioned in the previous panel. We saw sort of a shift in the way things were in the world. Disinformers got better at what they were doing, and it was harder to separate fact from fiction online. And particularly, we were interested in teenagers at the time because teenagers grew up with phones in their hands, but they seemed to be very bad at separating disinformation from true information. So when MediaWise originally launched, we wanted to teach teens how to essentially not share disinformation, especially gearing up for the midterm elections. So what we went off of was some research that the Stanford History Education Group had conducted. And they studied how academics navigated the internet, how students navigated the internet. And they found out that academics actually weren't that great at navigating the internet. They did share mis and disinformation, unfortunately. I'm not accusing you of doing that whatsoever. But the one person they did find were very, very good at navigating the internet were fact checkers. So the entire idea of MediaWise is based around teaching people to think like fact checkers. In 2018, we started with teenagers. Then we moved on to older people because the teenagers told us, well, what about my aunt and uncle that share disinformation all the time and those crazy posts? So we moved on and started teaching older Americans and then eventually Spanish speakers in the US, because that's the thing about mis and disinformation. It doesn't discriminate. Everyone is targeted, especially marginalized groups, because those in power know that they can manipulate marginalized groups with disinformation a lot better. So we worked with Spanish speakers, and now we have launched this international course. We're working in Spain, Brazil, France, and Turkey at this first international launch event. And really, the idea centers around, like I said, teaching citizens in Turkey how to think like fact checkers when they navigate the internet. And so I love sitting up here with fact checkers. I work with fact checkers a lot. Out of the Poynter Institute is also based PolitiFact, which you may have heard of. It's the largest political fact-checking organization in the United States. Media literacy and fact-checking are intimately married. I don't think you can have media literacy without fact-checkers. And within every fact-checking article that my new friends up here on stage write, there is media literacy because they are members of the International Fact-Checking Network, transparency is very important. So in every article they write, every time they verify or debunk a piece of misinformation or disinformation, they are teaching each and every one of you how to think like a fact checker. So that's why I am so excited to be able to partner with fact checkers around the world to spread our digital media literacy lessons. So One interesting thing that MediaWise does as well is we are home to the youngest fact checkers on the planet. Our teen fact checking network is made up of teenagers as young as 14 who they find disinformation, they fact check it on their own for their peers. We are signatories of the International Fact Checking Network. So for those of you who've never heard of the IFCN, this is an international organization, a coalition of fact checkers that I believe it's over 100 now in many countries. And to be part of the IFCN, you sign on to a set of principles. So you are trusted, nonpartisan, non-biased, and most importantly, I think to me, is you are transparent in your fact checking. I think right now around the world, if you look at anything awful, terrible that's happening, the climate crisis, the coronavirus pandemic, and threats to democracy and the rise of fascism, the things that are driving those are disinformation. I think we can trace a lot of society's harms back to lies, and that's why I am very excited to partner with fact checkers, with academics on the MediaWise International Project, because I think the only way we can overcome those society's ills is with a coalition of fact checkers, academics, educators, and then really taking those lessons and putting them in your hands in the power of citizens to be more savvy digital citizens and participants in a global democracy. The truth always wins, at least we hope so, and we are doing our part, hopefully, to make sure the truth ends in the win. It wins in the end.
Thank you. İsterseniz Esra.
So we can move on with Esra if you like. And in the meantime, I'm not sure if I have said this, but we have our sources of pride here. And we have other institutions doing some very good business. But now let me hand over to Teyit. Well, thank you very much. Hello, I'm Esra from Teyit. Well, actually, we had started to work with this project to offer some content, and as Erkan Hoca has said, it was also about sharing experience. And I'm going to try to tell you about our perspective. In the previous panel, our speakers and professors have already talked about the two most important concepts for us. One is the ecosystem, and another concept was that, as Halil Bey has said, this is a very long journey, and it's a very deeply rooted problem, so there is no easy solution to that. And in this ecosystem and in this long journey, it's not only about authentication, but numerous things have to be managed simultaneously. And when we bring these things together, the contribution we are offering for this project is meaningful for a couple of reasons. So we have authentication processes, and my colleagues agree with this, I'm sure. But rather than making a distinction between the right and wrong on the internet, we all feel this urge to make sure whether what we are receiving from the internet is something we can trust in or not. So from a Turkish perspective, Turkey, as far as access to internet is concerned, we have very high numbers, and our population is a young population as well. And from a political perspective and from the perspective of media literacy, we do not observe tangible manipulation and tangible intervention and contribution. So we are in need of different steps to be taken. It's not only about bringing people together and teaching them how to share things and what kind of information they can trust and so on. It's not only about that. You have to shape the ecosystem itself. So as Teyit, we were trying to manage these things at the same time. So authentication and verification, well, these is perhaps one of the most important thing. And we are trying to give shape to data, and we try to explain them what needs to be done in the first step. But in addition to this, perhaps, I mean, it's not as visible as verification. We have other activities as well, which are about social responsibilities, media literacy, and ability to think from a critical perspective or critical thinking skills. So we have programs in which we try to explain what these concepts really mean, and we have different training and education channels through which we can actualize this. And secondly, we do have some knowledge and experience in terms of ecosystem. So this is where we receive our input when we are trying to give shape to the ecosystem. Actually, in Turkey, we have numerous organizations and institutions who try to come up with solutions around these concepts at the same time. So we also manage a group program Factory, which aims at bringing these stakeholders together. So we have celebrated our 5th year recently, and in this period of 5 years, we have already started seeing the outputs. And from an experience perspective, I can also talk to you about my experience in Teyit, which was the Teachers Network project. And in the short run, we have focused on the stakeholders from the education industry, which included teachers as well. So we have been trying to reach out to teachers for what they can do in relation to media literacy problems, both in class and out of the class. So this is actually about creating together. Perhaps I can talk to you about that. And from another perspective, if we need to turn back to this project, with these interventions and with what we have been doing in the area of verification and authentication, they support one another all the time. So what we are trying to do is also trying to give some context to what we have been doing. And this is another fundamental pillar. And that brings us to WhatsApp. As far as our intervention is concerned, although it's focusing on individual users, perhaps one of the most challenging areas for WhatsApp users is this area, and the fact that this project is rolled out within WhatsApp and it's implemented on that social platform. It's very significant and very important, and it has great potential to give shape to our implementation as well. So that was very valuable. It was very valuable to localize the examples from the Turkish literature and coming up with a Turkish literature. Many universities and academies work on these areas, but it was equally valuable for us to be able to catch up with the experience on the field. So thank you for your contribution. Thank you. And we, Koray, Kaplica, let's talk about Dogruluk Payı, share of truth. Well, first, let me start by thanking to you for enabling me to be one of the stakeholders of this project. So that was something very valuable and critical for us. I wholeheartedly agree with what Esra has just said. And in countries like Turkey, media literacy stands out as perhaps a more important issue. And as Dogruluk Payı, share of truth, we have realized a number of workshops too. We have tried to bring together the stakeholders. But what I want to explain here is that what makes Dogruluk Payı, share of truth, different from others as well. I mean, we have been celebrating our 2nd year. Democratization was more important for us. 2013 was an interesting year. So those who remember will know about it. The incubation period coincided with 2013 actually, and this project has its pillars from that incubation period actually. Because when it comes to misinformation, we wanted to focus on these areas, but then we did not anticipate that the social media platforms would be getting this big, and we have then gradually come to the understanding that things were growing exponentially. So we decided to foreground this, and media literacy stood out as another important issue for us. I don't want to repeat what my colleague has just said. Turkey is a country which is open for misinformation. I mean, this is not a subjective view. I mean, government officials also voiced this. There is this special political culture coming back from the 1970s and anti-communist and even some anti-Semitic contexts which are somehow being continued since, I mean, Generation X. I mean, we are talking about different age groups, and we have social media platforms where such misinformation circulate. So when we receive materials all the time, gradually things become clear in our eyes. Even in the area of health, I mean, some pieces of information can be politicized. And it seems to be important for us to think about it. So as Dogruluk Payı, from a democratic perspective or within the context of democracy, active citizenship stands out as another important concept for us. So we are trying to focus on this. Media literacy is an important part of active citizenship. It seems to be a skill that needs to be internalized and that needs to be owned and improved by people so that they will be able to build the connections. The information atmosphere we are living in is rather complex and challenging, but it also has social and cultural aspects as well. What I mean by this is that Dogruluk Payı, after its first year, started to include in other studies other than verification, be it economic indicators about Turkey or other kinds of indicators. Turkey is going through some heated political arguments. I don't think that there is any other country in the world whose citizens wait for the announcement of inflation figures with this kind of fervor and anxiety. And looking at these kinds of facts, people should be directed so as to be able to read these kinds of information which is being circulated on social media platforms. So we have to focus on some different things perhaps. And as I've said, Dogruluk Payı, since its second year, since 2016, has been organizing workshops where we have been focusing on the methodology and also on issues like some processes of comprehension of political statements and information being circulated. So we have had face-to-face trainings. We have some very positive feedback from these, and there were people whom we have transferred onto our groups and teams, and we have seen that they were very right steps. These workshops are taking place not only in Istanbul but in other cities as well, which makes us very happy. So there's no need to repeat things. I think this is all I'll have to say. Well, thank you.
And so the connection, the relation between fact-checking and media literacy, and so and also and I think emphasis has been put on it is political codes and cultural codes as well. Yes, we are doing our best, but the issue is big and it requires lots of stakeholders as well. And we are making efforts, and we have made great progress as well. And so in the past, about 10 years ago, there were two terms: fact-checking, which was mainly used in order to confirm what politicians and the other elites said, And then we used verification for the checking of facts on the social media. So they were distinct, they were separate in the past. But knowing this will do no good to you. So, but in the past, and so I think we had to ponder a lot on this. But we use fact checking as a generic name now. Thank you very much for all your contributions. And so we can socialize all together, and we can engage in some networking as well. Please make sure that you scan our QR code or you click our link so that you